we've gotten more specific with a lot of the testing, and that is also very helpful. And then you can see the changes. I'd say, like, what's most important, we live in a society with, obesity that's, we all know the stats. I don't even want to say it, when over 40% of our population is obese, not just overweight. So if you look at that weight alone, but what is their blood sugar? And so that hemoglobin A1C is something that we work on a lot. That's like one. Hemoglobin A1C and blood pressure are extremely important for every single person to know about themselves.
Welcome to Beyond the Scale. I'm your host, Bradley Davey from InBody, and this podcast exists to educate and empower the next generation of healthcare providers. We're here to share tips, tricks, tools, and resources that can help catalyze your growth with the application of InBody's ecosystem of health assessment tools. Today we're going to talk about weight management, chronic disease, prevention and management, wellness and lifestyle coaching, integrative nutrition, culinary medicine, and healthy cooking. My guest today is Susan Greeley. She is the Senior Vice President and National Director of Wellness Services at Connolly Private Health Partners, where she runs the SENS Solution Wellness Program. SENS is an acronym that stands for Sleep, Exercise, Nutrition, and Stress Management. She's been doing this as well as being a registered dietitian for 30 years, writing lifestyle, stress, and weight management programs, cookbooks, and television series. Welcome to Beyond the Scale. Susan, thank you for joining me.
Hi, Bradley. Thank you. It is absolutely my pleasure to be here. I'm very excited about this. We have a lot to talk about.
We absolutely do. So tell me a little bit more about where you got your start and how does that lead you to your philosophy of care today?
You mentioned already, I have been a registered dietitian nutritionist for 30 years, and it was an exciting time back in the 90s, early 90s, to become a registered dietitian. And I thought about this before recording, leading up to the InBody and my first experience with the InBody. So I'll go back and talk about the early days of being a dietitian, why I became a dietitian. I grew up in a large family where my mom made home-cooked meals every day, hence the love of cooking and healthy whole foods, things like that. And I had a father who, at the time, would not let us have things like soda or anything except wheat bread, and was very health conscious. So that kind of formed a lot of my background and, as far as what I ate and my family ate and what I was aware of. And I grew up with my father saying, let food be thy medicine. And so that Hippocrates saying was, well known to me even as a young child, kind of interesting. Then later in my high school days, actually, I became an exchange student in Germany. So I moved to Europe as a 17-year-old, and people thought, the Germans eat so terribly. No, the Germans did not eat terribly. In fact, that was my first experience with what I would say is farm-to-table food. And I can talk a lot about the lifestyle in Europe in general and the foods, fresh foods, and making whole festivals out of mushrooms and asparagus and things like that. So I actually had a really good foundation there. And strangely enough, that's when I became interested in nutrition science. They did a lot of studies, research on herbs in Germany in particular. There's a very holistic approach to health. And I picked up on that. I was very fascinated by it, and I wanted to be a chemistry major anyway, which is a little known fact. So I went off to college to become a chemistry major, and it was an easy transition to the nutrition science, which I loved and took to very easily. And then you do an internship in nutrition to become a dietitian. I did a year-long internship in Boston, had a fabulous experience there. Not easy, however, amazing learning experience. And during that time, I think this is what people don't necessarily know, is when you're conducting nutrition assessments on patients, that's what it's all about as a clinical dietitian. These anthropometric measures, so studying the physical body, like measuring the physical body, is a big part of the nutrition assessment. Doing waist to hip ratios. I was using calipers to try to measure body fat on people at the time because we knew of bioelectrical impedance, but we didn't actually have machines like the InBody, not yet. Later, I believe that came about later in the 90s. So I was always into the medical side, obviously all the lab testing, but again, that physical measurement is a big part of conducting nutrition assessments. And I loved it. It did. So, okay, as far as my philosophy, that's talking a bit about the background, the early days as being a clinical dietitian that I almost never talk about anymore. I had great experience. I kind of did it all, saw it all. There's really not any area in medicine that I didn't see. And it made me, of course, want to work on preventing those diseases. I saw a lot of terrible things, quite honestly. And I worked in a teaching hospital of Harvard. You see a lot of intense things. And then I worked in public health, saw a lot of terrible things, honestly. And we talk now so much about prevention and lifestyle medicine with good reason, because we also have the data and all the science to back it up on how effective lifestyle changes are. And that's what I'm very passionate about. And that's what my parents taught, quite honestly, Bradley. I had a really strong foundation health-wise from both of my parents on how to take charge of your own health. And so my philosophy is that it does need to be personalized. We're all different. That has not changed. In fact, I think that's becoming more and more evident in today's world of medicine, which I'm thrilled about. And so I get a chance in my current position to help people. We partner with physicians. I work with a lot of amazing physicians, and I run a team of health coaches. And together, we're all passionate about really practicing preventative care.
Anthropomorphic measurements are one thing, but having the understanding of the chemistry within the body is also super important. Not a lot of doctors or even people that have med spas or have InBodies have that awareness of chemistry. So how do those two relate to one another?
You have to understand all aspects of the human body, honestly, inside and out. So as far as the chemistry goes and biochemistry, that relates to everything about the cells in the body, the food we put into our body, the functioning of the body, our whole physiology, and take it just with digestion alone. Nutrition is foundational to our health, but also to the overall functioning of the human body. And it's not just alarming, it's frustrating that nutrition is not taught in med schools still. I think slowly it is. And we all know this, that doctors say that themselves. They spend so little time understanding nutrition, even, food science, I talked about that, and food chemistry, it's all related. It's all tied together. You don't understand even the makeup of vitamins and minerals in the body. And then, when tied to nutrition, people talk so vaguely about macros and fats, carbs, and proteins without even really understanding it. Mm-hmm. And those are, basic nutrition is all chemistry.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was hoping you would get at. I have a friend that has an InBody in her pharmacy. She's been using it for like 10 years. And she says that pharmacists are probably one of the few doctors that...
Interestingly enough, take me back to those clinical days. I think things have changed now. So when you were doing things like tube feedings and what's called TPN, total parenteral nutrition, nourishing people through a central line, that was a dietitian and a pharmacist, always was the team. Now I believe the pharmacists also do those orders or solely do those orders and not on the dietitians unless they're on those teams. But isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Yeah. So you took your career in the direction of health coaching and working with Connolly, and you've helped develop this SENS program. Tell me a little bit more about that and what that includes and what it looks like for the patients. And to preface that a little bit, Connolly is a network of several different medical clinics. If you want to tell a little bit more about that too, and then how you've set up the program.
Many years later in my career, I did transition to concierge medicine in the sense that I work at Connolly Private Health Partners. I am Senior Vice President and National Director of the Wellness Program, as you mentioned. And this has given me the opportunity to build a team of health coaches and work collaboratively with our physicians. We partner with physicians, and they still practice the way, they want to practice. In fact, it actually gives them the ability in this concierge model, which is a subscription-based model of healthcare, to spend more time with patients and, again, practice the way they, I'd say, intended to practice when they went into the field of medicine, which is very patient-focused, and having that time with individual patients and making it personalized. So I'm happy that I can support that. And I love the collaboration that this role offers me with our physicians. We have over 70, so we've partnered with over 70 physicians. We're constantly growing, and their patients become our members. And all of those members, i.e. patients, are able to take part in the SENS Solution Wellness Program, which is what I run, and have built this team of board-certified health and wellness coaches. So what does that actually look like? When somebody opts into health coaching or they're referred by their physician, I pair them with a specific coach to work on those pillars of wellness: sleep, exercise, nutrition, and stress management. And as you can imagine, a lot of people say, yes, I want health coaching to help me with weight loss. And they just say, weight loss at face value, you and I both know, doesn't say the whole story. So, as things transition, I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but now in this day and age of GLP-1s, different medication, it is imperative to start actually looking deeper and look beyond the scale. I love the title of your podcast. It's time. It's time to have this conversation. I get so frustrated that the individuals that I work with, so clients, members, patients, whatever you want to call them, they're so scale and weight focused, and that is a disservice to themselves and their overall health and well-being. So now, as we coach more, if I can have the data, the more nuanced and personalized data to give to the coach, to give them the specifics to work on with our members, it's life-changing. It's truly life-changing, because you can focus on losing weight and you've lost too much lean body mass. That doesn't make you metabolically healthier. In fact, it's quite the reverse. I just had somebody who lost 30 pounds or so, put it back on, a man he's overweight, but at 40% body fat. 40% body fat, but yet his BMI, if we went just on his BMI, he's overweight. Nobody would say, oh, that's terrible. 40% body fat on a 40-some-year-old man is not good, right? And having this data is game-changing. And it's been around, but it hasn't been as, used in clinics, used by the individual physicians. Dietitians want and use this information all the time. The more body composition information we have, the better and more specific and personalized the coaching and the goal setting can be.
It really seems like you're trying to meet your members where they are, mm-hmm. to then be able to set up goals and communicate with them to help them achieve a greater outcome in the medical clinic. So what you're doing is supporting the doctor alongside of this person's care.
Yes, and I encourage our physicians to use body composition as one of the metrics that they're following, not just the weight. So more and more we're having these conversations and helping our physicians realize that that's doable. And we're looking to constantly engage. Patients are also our customers, right? So think of your patients more from that customer-centric view. And then it's easy to say, we need to do more for them, right? Instead of it being driven by cost and doing the easy, it's easy and maybe cheaper, right? So those are areas we could talk about, but it's how do you make it doable for the consumer, the customer, the patient? That's what we'll call them, the member. If they come into the doctor's office and the doctor says, hey, get on this machine, I'm going to measure your body composition, I'm going to tell you a lot more about what's going on in your body, and are you dehydrated, are you inflamed, are you losing weight too quickly, on your GLP-1, and maybe with or without medication. It's just extremely important. We all know this. When you lose weight and you cut calories, you will burn lean body tissue and some fat, right? But there's a lot more nuance to it. So if you have this data to show that you're losing too much lean body mass, that is exactly why you can then go and look at the diet and see what they're doing wrong in their diet. I have so many examples of this. I had somebody today too. He was eating 70-year-old. His body fat is the same as it was 2 years ago, and his lean body mass was down 8 pounds. Not good. So the 8 pounds that he lost was of lean body tissue. And why? Then you go and look at the diet, and not that this applies to everybody, but he was eating too many refined carbs and not eating enough protein and other whole foods during the day, eating refined carbs and processed treats late at night. And I said, little small tweaks like that. And then when they see that, oh, I can make like a really simple change to my diet and pinpoint it, and then you go back and get that follow-up measurement. People you can speak to this more than I can, or I want you to, I guess, when you come on my podcast. There's no downside of getting on that scale weekly. You can do it if your physician has it. And as part of our model, let's say a concierge physician has it and you're not paying as a patient or member out of pocket every time you get on it, you're going to stay with your physician. You're going to stay in health coaching because you're tracking, you have your own personal longitudinal data, and that keeps people engaged. It keeps them motivated and excited that they not only are losing weight, they can see the positive effect. Right? And we can also talk about the body water. Who knows if they're well hydrated or not, or if they're retaining fluid in areas of their body where they shouldn't be, other than that physical exam. That's what an InBody can tell you.
Yeah, and there's only really one way to know that. It was by getting some type of objective measurement for that. We can start with the weight, but that's kind of archaic, like you're saying.
It is archaic.
We want to move past that.
We do. Let's say it. Repeat that. Let's move past it so we can actually help people stop getting so stuck on a number on a scale. It actually breaks my heart when I still work with people who are so fixated on their actual body weight and not their body composition.
Yeah. When it comes to muscle or even water, there's water that's inside of our bones and muscles and water that's outside in our blood and our skin and our lymphatic system. So that would be intracellular and extracellular water. So we're able to see that. And one of the things that you made me think of when you mentioned the GLP-1s or even different type of diets where people are maybe a ketogenic diet where we're cutting a lot of those processed carbohydrates and our body is pulling a lot of water out of our cells. So we're not putting that sugar and water back into the cells. We're actually using it, and then we're not replenishing it. So a lot of times the loss in muscle mass or lean mass that we see is a dehydration of water. So we may not essentially be losing the muscle tissue, but the water is moving. And water, as you know, and you could speak more on this, the importance of water in the process of metabolism and bringing nutrients in the cells and back out of the cells and out of the body. It's super, super important. And I feel like, we're getting beyond the weight and we're talking more about muscle and fat. And I feel like the next place we'll go is balancing water ratios and people wanting to care more about that. And another one that kind of plays into that as we talk about metabolism is the basal metabolic rate. That's another output that we show on the InBody. Yes. How does that play into what you do as a coach?
Thank you for saying that. Those two things, I completely agree with you. And we need to just get that message out there more and more about fluid status and, water, that extra versus intracellular water. It's a big deal. And so it doesn't give you an accurate reading on your actual lean body mass, the lean tissue, if you're dehydrated. But that aside, the BMR I wanted to talk about because that is a starting point. And it's all tied together. This is so timely with society focused so much on weight loss and these medications that, and I've seen it, are really valuable. Like they're game changing and they help so many people and they need to keep, helping people. I'm pro when done right. And when you're starting on a GLP-1, for example, and any weight loss journey, it is extremely important to know what is your basal metabolic rate. What is the bare minimum amount of energy you need just to keep your body processes going? A lot of people don't know that, or they could guess, and you'd be surprised because I've seen them. You might think yours is low and it turns out to be high, and vice versa, right? I'm sure you've seen this. You see so many measurements, and so don't guess at that. If you can have that actual number, I don't like people ever eating below that number. And too many do. And I've seen that. So calorie restriction over time is what will drop your metabolic rate. So if you're consistently consuming, say, 800 calories because you have no appetite, right? From a medication or not, but I've seen this happen. So you don't have an appetite, you severely restrict your calories, that will lower your metabolic rate. So you have to make an effort to eat at least at or above that amount. And that's what I've seen too often, and also why you can lose that lean body tissue. And that's a real thing. That's a huge part of it. So what I say with my coaches, we develop this protocol, like for our physicians who have that measurement from the InBody in particular, maybe they do have a DEXA scan. If I can give that information to one of the health coaches to start with, then it helps them in not developing meal plans for clients, but helping them as they track their diet. So the health coach is your accountability partner. They don't necessarily develop the plan for the client, but they're helping them implement it. And they don't know that most people don't know what 30% of their daily calories from protein even looks like, right? So if we can give them some very specifics on how to create those meals, how to actually eat, let's say in the right amount of calories for that person on a daily basis to maintain their lean body mass and still lose fat, that is life and game changing. It does change their life.
Tell me more about that in terms of your perspective on helping people align their food intake or diet, if you will. What's your kind of entry point to help assess where somebody's at related to that, and then be able to help guide them along the way?
That's what I love to do. You have to start with getting an accurate view of what somebody does now. So whether it's a coach, a dietitian, a doctor, they say let's say you as the patient or the client, they say, please keep a food diary for me. Just track what you're eating and drinking every day for 3 days, preferably 5. If you could do it longer, it's better. You have to have an accurate view of what somebody does before. Otherwise, you're just talking. I could tell you to eat more protein and maybe you overeat protein, right? You can't actually assess that intake until you see what a person's doing. So that's always the starting part, Bradley. And my team does it. Health coaches, they all, for the most part, let's say this is very specific, obviously, to diet. It's very hard to work with somebody unless you see what they're doing. They can tell you, but that doesn't actually show you what they're doing. And there's often a disconnect. And I think you can relate, I can relate. If I told you how I generally eat is very different than when I keep my own food diary, I can assure you.
Yeah. I started using this app that's integrated with InBody. It's called Life-Based Solutions.
Okay.
And it's an app where I can log all the food that I eat.
Excellent.
And then on the back end, I have a nutrition coach that can see all that data, and they can set up custom meal plans, and the system will actually continue to coach me meal by meal and day by day to align with the macronutrient breakdown that I have wanted to achieve to get to the goal that I want to get, like build muscle, lose fat.
Exactly.
And
See how nuanced? Now, question, is that coach a real coach or is that
yeah,
AI? Okay.
yeah. Well, there's both kind of built into it because
Yeah.
day by day, it's like you said, I want to get 30 grams of protein. It's kind of a check and balance. Did I get that or not? Then it shows me that. It tells me that. So part of it is AI, but then the other part of it is a coach that's actually there to meet the person where they're at and help them understand that better. And what I learned in this process was I need that help every once in a while to kind of like dial myself back in. I'm like driving my
Right.
nutrition car, and
Yeah.
I veer off the road a little bit, and then just
That's
paying
exactly.
attention a little bit gets me back on the road. And that makes me feel better, makes me feel more motivated, inspired, accountable, those type of things.
You just hit the nail on the head. That was perfect. That was a perfect description of when and how a coach comes into play. Why do I need a coach? Who needs a coach? A lot of people think they don't. I think we can all benefit from having, even if it's an occasional check-in. Don't you think?
Absolutely, yeah. When I think about health coaching, my friend has this acronym that he likes to use for a coach, and the it's EMACK. E is efficiency, so
Okay.
a health coach is going to help somebody be more efficient. M is motivated.
Okay.
A is accountable. C is consistent or committed, and
Nice.
then K is knowledge.
Yeah.
There's a lot that a health coach can provide to support somebody in their lifestyle. And I think the challenge is a lot of people think that, oh, it's somebody that's going to help me write an exercise program or just somebody that's going to tell me what to eat. But it
Right.
can be
Not
a
at
lot.
all.
It can be a lot more than that.
Right. In fact, we say this all the time. It's important that the coach doesn't just tell you what to eat. Or as a dietitian, that's my least favorite thing to hear is just tell me what to eat. No, we empower, you and I both. It's the point of it. We need to empower people so that then you cut them loose at some point and they can make the right decisions and choices and actually understand that knowledge is power. So the K part of that, I think, is the key, or, you get to that point where they have the knowledge themselves and then really do know how to do it. I did, as you mentioned in my intro bio, I did write a cookbook. And one of the things that I say repeatedly to people, because I heard this for so long with weight loss and weight management courses that I would do, is like, I know what I should do. And stop saying that. If you knew what you should do, if you really knew what worked for you, then you wouldn't be having the problem. You wouldn't still have weight loss issues, right? And I don't like the should word. That's a whole separate topic, honestly, because it imparts a lot of guilt. But the whole point is that knowing is often there's a disconnect there. People think they know what constitutes a healthy diet, but again, there's what works for me may not work for you. And that goes to both the macros and the specific foods, your genetic makeup, your taste preferences, your gut health, right? People have sensitivities and they have allergies. If anybody has dealt with food allergies alone, you may be allergic to strawberries, and I'm telling you to eat more berries, or you're allergic to all berries, right? It doesn't necessarily work for everybody. Plant-based doesn't work for everybody. Keto doesn't work. There's no one diet that fits all, and we have a lot of science to back that up. So, hence, back to that coaching being personalized. I say this, it's personalized, it's non-prescriptive. And now we have so much support. We have devices. We live in this day and age of data and more science than we probably know what to do with. And that's all good. It's how we use it and interpret it and then take action on it that matters. So that's why a team collaborative approach is so important. And I love supporting people doing that.
When it comes to assessments, obviously body composition is one that we're talking about here. I think you mentioned maybe food sensitivity in there. What other kind of assessments do you like to do with somebody? If I was a new patient and I said, hey, take me through it, show me everything I need to see to be able to help me make the best decisions, what kind of other assessments would you take me through?
So if the doctors are doing the lab, then and they ask my input, then I like to see micronutrient testing. And as much or as little as they'll do, could be as little as checking their B12 and vitamin D3, but they can do a full micronutrient panel now, and that is very helpful. Then, of course, a lipid profile. We have advanced cardiovascular labs now, and they're extremely helpful, and it helps us. If they say, hey, Susan, I want you or one of your coaches to help lower, they need a cholesterol lowering diet, or help them do that. More labs are important. The individual particle numbers, for example. So we've gotten more specific with a lot of the testing, and that is also very helpful. And then you can see the changes. I'd say, like, what's most important, we live in a society with, obesity that's, we all know the stats. I don't even want to say it, when over 40% of our population is obese, not just overweight. So if you look at that weight alone, but what is their blood sugar? And so that hemoglobin A1C is something that we work on a lot. That's like one. Hemoglobin A1C and blood pressure are extremely important for every single person to know about themselves. So I guess when I think about it, and those are basic labs. Well, A1C is a lab, blood pressure is, just a measurement that you do with. So easy peasy. If people don't know their blood pressure, I don't know what to say. Like, walk into CVS and you can get your blood pressure checked. But that is that. I kind of digress. There are areas of health and wellness that I focus on, and we just have too much cardiovascular disease still. It's the number one killer of Americans, and diabetes is epidemic, prediabetes, and both high blood pressure, hypertension, and prediabetes go undiagnosed in millions of people. So that's my little soapbox too on what I helped.
So at InBody, we have a couple different types of blood pressure monitors.
Right.
One is automatic too, that integrates with the body composition analyzer. So you could have a patient test their blood pressure and their body composition, and all of that data could get printed out in the same result sheet, go up to the cloud and to the app for the patient to continue to track. And then we also have consumer versions of our blood pressure monitor where they connect to the app and for home use. And maybe this is something that could work for your network too, where the data that comes from the patient's app can also be sent to the clinic so that they can see any type of remote data at home, to be able to monitor these risks too.
So that is a key point as well. And who does it? This world is connected. How do we use this to our advantage? I think it's a huge miss if we're not doing that, right? It's easier than ever. And in my opinion, there's kind of no reason that we're not doing that more with, at least in the world of concierge medicine. It's, the way things are shifting to have not just the call with your doctor when you want it, but to have that ongoing measurement and monitoring is easier now than it ever has been. And it's, can be life-saving, quite honestly.
Yeah.
In my own personal life, just had this conversation with my brother about his own blood pressure. He's 64-year-old guy. He's perfect weight. He's actually a track coach. So his weight and activity level would never suggest that he's stage 1 hypertension, has stage 1 hypertension. So we had a heart to heart.
Can you take me through possibly some other success stories or case studies of people that you've worked with that you've been able to help through some of these, maybe curing or preventing some type of a chronic disease or lots of weight loss or lean mass gain?
We have many, many testimonials, and these, they're subjective, but self-reported outcomes are key. They're just actually can not just bring tears to my eyes, and I sincerely mean that. And my team, it makes you feel really good when you see that you've helped somebody, or you get an email that you've saved my life, you've changed my life. A lot are related to making some real habit changes, such as never having exercised before, and now having a regular exercise routine that has helped them lower their blood pressure. I have one in particular, early 70s. So I think a really important message for everybody out there is it truly is never too late to make positive changes. You can at any age. And I think that's what inspires me the most, is when I work with somebody who's over 70 or over 80. We even have some members in their 90s who are reaching out for health coaching. And I love just that mindset that they can make a change, a positive change in their health and physical, how they feel and function. So that said, I have many of them. I have one client. I like to she never would want to be talked about. She's very, very private, and obviously I would never say. She has lost over 100 pounds working with me, and my health coaches have a whole, slew of testimonials themselves, but this one particular person comes to mind. She did not choose to do it with the help of medication. This has been strictly lifestyle and having the ongoing support of a coach, i.e. me. In this case, I'm the one working with her. We have been working together for 3 years, and she still has more weight to lose. She reached like a year-long plateau. Bottom line is, if we hadn't been working together, and I know this, and she says this because she gets frustrated, and this is life, and this is more about the coaching rather than these metrics, she would have regained that weight if she didn't have that ongoing accountability and the motivation when she goes through these more than a lull. Well, she'll go through a funk like we all do, or a bad phase, and regain a little. And I have to keep pointing out to her, you're in a much healthier place now, 5 years later. We actually met 5 years ago, been working with her like over 3 years consistently. She's healthier today than she was in her late 50s when she started. She's now in her early 60s. That's tremendous. And she's still 100 pounds down. Those are amazing stories to see.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear.
Yeah. And her doctor, of course, is thrilled with that. She avoids seeing her doctor, but she sticks with the health coaching.
Yeah, a lot of people need an ally to help them manage their care overall.
Right.
A health coach is a great resource if they're they have a knowledge base to be able to do that. Back to my pharmacy partner there and friend, she likes to position herself in the pharmacy as somebody that's going to help you to be able to work with a lot of different healthcare professionals and understand your own care program.
Right.
Because I think there's a lot of misconceptions, or people have hesitations, or if we think about our mental health, there's challenges there that we can become depressed at times, and stress becomes an issue, inflammation, stress eating, all kinds of different
Tie it all
things.
together. Exactly.
Tie it all together, you know what I mean?
That is why you have to focus on multiple pillars.
Yeah. One of the things I think I want to tease out of you a little bit further is as it relates to home cooking and healthy cooking, and give me some tips and tricks or like foundations that you have in your life, or that you like to teach people to be able to successfully cook for themselves to lead a healthy, active life.
I do think a lot about this as I get older, and I have anybody who knows me knows that I have 4 children, and they're not just children anymore. I have like grown men. I have 21, 19, 16, and 12-year-olds, and they eat a lot. So it's important, and they're not always here. They're out of the house a lot. One's in college and that. But that said, like, I'm constantly thinking about how to nourish myself in my 50s and these young growing bodies, and balancing it is hard. So this is very relevant. I say this to parents in particular: don't neglect yourself. I actually cook for myself and then I add on the other stuff for them. So if I cook for myself and they understand what constitutes a healthy plate, they're more likely to eat the vegetables, maybe the salads. They don't eat necessarily the amount of salads and vegetables that I eat, but I have really focused on, I've changed my diet not quite a bit, but it is more specific now because I am getting older, and I notice the effects like on how I feel much more so now than I did 20 years ago, I can assure you. And the kids don't think that. So for example, if I make a pasta dish, maybe I don't eat the pasta dish, but I am eating the protein and the vegetables in the salad, but I'll still make like a lot of starchy stuff for my kids, and it's quick and easy to cook. As far as daily meal planning, I can say this to anybody and everyone. It is really important to have food on hand to grocery shop, and at least, even if you think you can't cook, then you can assemble, right? I have a client, she doesn't cook, she's plant-based, and she's actually maybe not cooking in her mind, but she kind of is. Like, I've gotten her to be able to prepare these excellent meals because you can buy some pre-marinated tofu and she can cook up a grain and she can, do the different vegetables, toss it over some leafy greens, throw on some pumpkin seeds and drizzle it, right? Like, once you get started talking, I can help her build like different variations of a grain and protein bowl with a lot of non-starchy vegetables. Two things that I say to people. Well, I have a lot of little taglines I do, and I guess what I want to focus on. Okay, one thing that comes to mind is my best friend recently asked me, who's also in her early 50s, and she said, Susan, what are like the 5 key things I should focus on in my diet, or, like that you would say to everybody? And I say, sugar is no one's friend. You're probably not getting enough protein. People tend to eat too much, too frequently, and too late at night. So that was kind of like, I lumped it all in there. So if you break that down, it is really true. Refined carbs don't work for many, many people. Kids run on sugar and they eat more carbs, that's fine. But as far as in your own daily life, if you focus on removing sugar, and I could take that to artificial sweeteners as well, then what are you eating? You're forced to make different choices. So that typically cleans up people's diet right there by removing refined carbs. And then you're going to add more fiber. You're probably going to add more protein. And then as far as the habits going, grazing is not good for anybody unless they're really trying to gain weight. And I could elaborate on that, but get that out of your mind. Eating very frequently does not increase your metabolism. Most people do gain weight on that.
Does it have to do with blood sugar management?
Yeah, and exactly. Yep. So I'll never forget. I was doing weight management classes at YMCA, and I had this petite woman in probably her 50s or 60s at the time. She was eating about 8 times a day because she had been told like frequent small meals, and she was gaining weight. And I said, that's exactly. She probably only needed 1,100 calories anyway. She was overeating every day simply because she had been told to eat frequently. So that's a misnomer. That is, a very old dieting myth. There's a lot to this time-restricted eating and intermittent fasting, whatever you want to call it, on a daily basis. Time-restricted eating is very important for all human beings. It's important to let our gut rest, let body processes heal. And so I say to everybody, I'm not a fan of skipping breakfast, but that's me. It's really important to at least have a 12-hour window between the time you last eat in the evening and when you first eat the next day. And a lot of people don't even have that 12-hour window. They're eating till late in the night, and then they wake up hungry. They're a little metabolic mess. And that's also very individual.
How does that relate to culinary medicine? And is it similar?
Okay. Culinary medicine is when you're choosing specific foods, say so diet therapy is using diet and nutrition, obviously, to help manage chronic diseases typically, right? Whether it's diabetes, kidney disease, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, you can think of any number. Even Alzheimer's. Now we have this Bredesen protocol. I get so excited about the advancements we're making in nutrition science and reversing some really serious disease. And osteoporosis, that's another one I'm very passionate about. Bone health, people don't think about. So as far as culinary medicine, it's simply making these meals with very specific foods to target, let's say, using herbs and spices for a very specific reason. Okay, and cooking foods in a specific way, using certain seeds. So I started to say that, like I tell people to use anti-inflammatory foods in there. What does that mean? It's not just about the spices like turmeric that people know. There's a combination of spices, but it's also incorporating seeds and good fats into your daily diet. And I'm actually doing a recording on healthy fats next week. You'll have to listen to it. That is probably the most confusing and complicated area of the macros are fats, and people don't even realize that. There's a lot of misinformation, but healthy fats are extremely important for our overall health and well-being. So that's what culinary medicine is like tying in the good fats, like how do you cook? And a lot of people don't cook because we have quick and easy calories. Now, I think I have a lot of tangents and soapboxes I like to get on, but we live in this society, and you know this too. I'm in New Jersey. I'm surrounded by quick and easy calories, and they're tasty. They're no longer cheap. It costs you a lot now to just go and buy a pizza or a sub here, but you understand what I mean. There's a lot of fast food, a lot of quick food. I was in New York, I work in the city. There's food everywhere, everywhere. Yeah. So it's hard for people to change that habit and start to cook more on a daily basis. And like I said, even if you're not cooking, buy some good food and learn how to assemble and prep some simple healthy meals. My breakfast is not cooked. I usually do some version of an overnight oats. My muesli. Could share that too. I had two conversations about it today because I'm very specific about putting hemp seed and ground flaxseed in it. Don't just eat plain old oatmeal.
I think we could continue to tease some of this out if you want to do this again, and maybe we could break it down into
Yeah.
macro and micronutrients a little bit more specifically. But if somebody wanted to, our listeners are people that are thinking about getting in bodies, they have an in body,
Mhm.
maybe a medical clinic or a fitness center, and they want to dive into learning more about nutrition or connecting with you, where are some good places that they could go and do that?
To connect with me specifically, I do my own podcast, so that doesn't connect with me, but you can get a sense of what I work on because that was a play on words there. It's the Sense of Wellness podcast for because of the SENS Wellness Program, and I am reachable at my work email. I would say if anybody wanted to reach me there, sgreeley@ccphp.net. Can reach me there, and that's a good starting point. If you're curious about concierge medicine, the SENS Wellness Program, the things that we do for our members, and health coaching, other educational resources, I'm always happy to talk about and have conversations. I like helping people. I love educating and supporting not just our members, but anybody who cares to make a positive change in their life.
Fantastic. And if you're interested in getting an InBody or connecting with our team, you can visit inbodyusa.com/beyond the scale for a special offer from our team, and someone will reach out to you there. Thank you so much for joining me, Susan. This was fantastic, and I hope we get to do it again soon on your podcast and on ours again, where we can dive deeper.
Yes, thank you, Bradley. This has been fun, great pleasure, and we have a lot more to talk about and great work to keep working on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye.